So we are focusing on kind of soft areas, not engineering, all these kind of things. And about myself, maybe you have already read my information. So I'm Kati, you can call me Kati, and I have been working almost my whole career as an entrepreneur. I had a kindergarten of my own for 15 years. Then I sold it to Pilke, where you visited yesterday, I think. Yes, and continued my studies. So now I'm a Doctor of Education from the University of Helsinki. And at the same time, when I had the kindergarten, I already started a new business, consulting business, and I started to train educators in Finland and then also abroad. And now I have been working here at Lorea for 5 years. And I'm taking care of our education export, some parts, for example, joint programs, joint degrees, double degrees, these kind of trainings. And then we have other people who collect students from around the world to come to study in Laurea in Finland, but I focus more in taking our education to their countries. Yeah. I'm a grandmother. I have actually 4 grandchildren, 2 of my own and 2 from my husband's side. So I'm really lucky because when you just stay with adults, teach adults, you easily lose the connect to the childhood. So this is really nice that I can always meet children and play with them, because that's really refreshing, I think. Okay, because I have so strong and long history in early childhood education field, but also the theoretical studies, I try to connect these things together when I'm educating people, because I think that both sides are important, but we can't just talk on a theoretical level. We also need to know how to connect things into practice. And that's what we are trying to do today also. I was a bit wondering that would you like to tell me something about your areas of interests, or what is your experience, or do you want to share, or do you want just me to talk and then ask questions, because it helps of course me if I know what is your area of interest.
Mọi người có muốn chia sẻ với cô về những cái điều mà mình quan tâm, hoặc là những cái trải nghiệm, những cái kinh nghiệm của mình không ạ?
Các nhà giáo dục.
Mình nói tiếng Việt nó sẽ tự dịch đúng không?
If she speaks Vietnamese, is it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't recognize Vietnamese.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Chưa có tiếng Việt, cô nói vào cái máy nó chưa có.
Thế dung dịch.
Chị cứ nói
Em
tiếng
sẽ dịch.
Tôi cũng là một cô giáo mầm non và xuất thân từ trường Đại học Sư phạm Hà Nội, khoa giáo dục mầm non. Nếu mà nói về lĩnh vực giáo dục mầm non thì tôi thực sự là đi lên từ giáo viên mầm non đúng chuyên môn. Thế và trong cái quá trình vừa là sinh viên vừa là học viên nghiên cứu bậc học thạc sĩ ấy, thì tôi thấy là cái khâu đánh giá trong giáo dục mầm non ấy, ở Việt Nam về cơ bản thì cũng có các cái lý thuyết để hướng dẫn cho người làm giáo dục có thể là đánh giá được trẻ em cũng như là cái công tác giảng dạy của mình. Tuy nhiên đến với buổi ngày hôm nay thì tôi rất là mong chờ và tò mò để có thể là học hỏi thêm được các cái công cụ đánh giá. Ví dụ như ở Việt Nam chúng tôi thì chúng tôi chỉ có các cái mục tiêu do các cấp đề ra thôi. Thế nhưng mà cái bộ công cụ để đánh giá xem là trẻ có đạt được các cái mục tiêu cần đạt được không thì lại phải là do người giáo viên đề ra. Thế thì mình muốn hỏi xem là có cái sự khác biệt gì đó ở Phần Lan không? Các bạn có đánh giá và có đưa ra các công cụ luôn cho giáo viên hay không? Hay là cũng để cho người giáo viên tự phải nghĩ ra được các công cụ đánh giá theo các cái mục tiêu mà nhà nước đề ra ấy?
So in brief, she was educated in the University of Education in teacher in kindergarten herself, a kindergarten teacher, and she has been doing a master's in research, early childhood education, and she's very much interested in assessment. And I don't know, she doesn't know if it's the same in Finland, but in Vietnam, the national curriculum just have outlines the objectives of the assessment in kindergarten, in early childhood education, but we don't really have the tools. So basically they outlines the objectives, but it doesn't show them how to do assessment, and that is what I'm really interested in knowing, whether it's the same in Finland, and if you provide any sort of tools to kindergarten teachers for that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Do you have, what kind of goals or objectives do you have in your curriculum? Are they child specific, so that each child needs to reach certain milestones, for example, or are they more general?
Tức là trong cái chương trình giáo dục mầm non của mình ấy,
Yeah.
thì là các cái mục tiêu đấy nó có tập trung vào đứa trẻ không? Ví dụ như là nó có thể là đề ra là trẻ phải đạt được một cái gì đó.
Tức là ở Việt Nam ấy thì đánh giá trẻ thì sẽ dựa trên 5 lĩnh vực phát triển. Ở Việt Nam mình là chia thành các lĩnh vực phát triển, trong đó có thể chất, ngôn ngữ, tình cảm xã hội, nhận thức, thẩm mỹ và một cái lĩnh vực gì nữa nhỉ? 5 rồi đúng không? Đấy. Thế thì trong cái lĩnh vực phát triển đấy thì đối với mỗi độ tuổi, ví dụ như là từ 1 đến 5 tuổi thì mỗi độ tuổi sẽ có các chỉ số phát triển. Gọi là chỉ số phát triển, và trong chỉ số đó ví dụ như là thể chất trẻ cần phải đạt chiều cao cân nặng bao nhiêu, rồi là hoạt động được các cái kỹ năng thể chất nào, đấy kiểu thế. Đấy, rồi kể cả về các lĩnh vực khác như là ngôn ngữ này, rồi tình cảm xã hội này, thẩm mỹ này, thì cũng đều vạch ra những cái mà tức là thiên về cái mục tiêu giáo dục Việt Nam mình ấy là phát triển cho trẻ các kỹ năng nền tảng. Thế thì trong các kỹ năng nền tảng đấy nó bao gồm có cả kiến thức, kỹ năng thái độ, năng lực nền tảng ấy. Đấy thì trong cái đấy thì trong kiến thức, kỹ năng, cái thái độ đấy thì người ta sẽ phân ra các cái chỉ số đấy. Thì trong các cái chỉ số đấy nó sẽ hiển thị những cái đấy theo cái độ tuổi nó có.
So basically, in the national curriculum that we have, the assessment is child-centered in the sense that we have 5 learning development areas, and for those they divide into different age groups. They're physical, emotional, language, cognitive, and aesthetic, so sort of like art. And they divide into by development areas and then by age. For example, in terms of physical, they're gonna have the objective, for example, by what age the kids would have to be, how tall and how.
Okay, so specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what sort of grade would be appropriate. So that.
And are you running tests for children to assess their skills?
Ở Việt Nam mình thì có làm các cái kiểm tra, các bài kiểm tra
Có.
để mà
Okay.
Tức là hàng tháng người giáo viên ấy sẽ phải phân bổ các chỉ số đấy vào trong các hoạt động là các cái môn học ấy. Sau đó là đến cuối năm học thì mình sẽ rà soát theo đúng cái năm lĩnh vực phát triển đấy. Nó sẽ khoảng, ví dụ như nhà trẻ nó khoảng 30 mấy chỉ số chẳng hạn, vào 5 tuổi nó sẽ có khoảng 70 chỉ số chẳng hạn. Thì nếu mà đạt tích tức là có đánh giá, và bổ các cái chỉ tiêu đánh giá đấy vào trong chính các hoạt động hàng ngày của các con rồi có đánh giá. Thế và một số các cái chỉ số khác thì chị hỏi về cái bộ công cụ là vì sao là ở đây người ta có đánh giá như vậy không, hay là như Việt Nam ở đây họ có đánh giá như vậy không, hay là
So basically, when the teachers design the learning, the educational activities, they take those goals and objectives and put in the activities.
Yeah.
For example, for I think under 3, they have about 30 something criteria,
Okay.
and then for older than 3, they have about 70. Từ trên 3 tuổi là của bạn 70 chỉ tiêu.
5 tuổi là 70.
For 5 years old, about 70 criteria, and the teachers would base on those to assess the students.
And then they tick the box.
Yeah, they tick the box.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes, this was very clear. Okay, thank you very much. How about others? Would you like to say something?
Mọi người có muốn chia sẻ gì thêm về những cái mục
Đây
tiêu,
học về
những
đánh
cái
giá nên là mình muốn học xem họ
điều
đánh
mà
giá
mọi
mức
người
nào.
quan tâm không?
I'm personally really interested in the curriculum development in Finland. My background is in the Australian curriculum, and I just moved back to Vietnam for almost a year now. So there's a significant gap between the Australian one and the Vietnamese one. Even though with the Australian, there are certain competence that children have to reach, they still divide the learning areas by subjects. So we have numeracy, literacy, we have arts, we have PE, and they have criteria to assess children as well. And we also have to assess children every 3 months.
Okay.
It's considered as a term. But in terms of learning and teaching beliefs, I find it quite similar to the Finnish curriculum and the assessment. So I was wondering what would maybe be the aspect that I can learn from to improve the assessment and the curriculum that we do at my school.
Yeah. Maybe I will answer you shortly. Maybe the difference is also for the Australian system that in Finland we are not allowed to evaluate children and their learning, but we are evaluating the activities and how the staff is doing their job. So that's also difficult for Finnish educators to kind of remember or understand, because we quite easily start to evaluate how the child is performing.
But with the centers that you developed, Pilke. I find the teachers were sort of like the role model that we were learning when I was in Australia. That's how you're supposed to be when you're educators. It's not like a helper. So I'm really interested in how you can, as someone who trained other teachers, what would be the aspect that you would bring out to help educators be able to think in a certain way when they do lesson plan, when they develop a curriculum of a project?
That's a long journey, and of course it requires quite high educational level, and it would also require that we had qualified staff in the kindergartens, which we now don't have because we are lacking of the qualified educators. So the situation is not very good in Finland, I would say. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Anything else?
Mọi người còn muốn chia sẻ gì thêm không? Có quan tâm gì về đánh giá?
Because our school in Vietnam, we have standards because we have curriculum in Finland and Cambridge, and when we use this curriculum in our school, we have standards and outcome for the children.
So you use the Cambridge. I know the Cambridge system. You use it, but did you say that you also use
For language, for foreign language.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's interesting. And then do you need to apply the Vietnamese curriculum in the
No. We another curriculum is kids science.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
One more thing, because I know that in Vietnam, every kid they have a personal report for them each month, and they will send to the parent to double check and review what their child have done and have not done during a month. But it's just a general information because every kid has a same report, and then teacher just take note some of them if the kid have some special need or something like this. But for me, for my viewpoint, I think each kid they have different development and different thing when they done anything and different action on this in the overview. So if the teacher just keep the same general information and general stuff to stick on, it means that on, for example, on mathematics, they can do math under 10 or something like this. But some kids cannot finish their math worksheet under 10, and they just stick that the kid haven't done. That's it. But the parent when they read this one, they don't know how the kid do not done well on this and what's the problem. So they cannot understand exactly, and how can the parent help them or the teacher help them to make it better.
Okay.
So I want to get know in the Finland, we have the specific structure, specific report for each children. So we can learn and help them to make the early intervention. So I think it's better. So I want to get know more about.
Yeah. Have you already been talking about the Finnish neuvola child healthcare system?
No.
No, you
I
haven't.
didn't mention it.
Yes, because it links with this. Maybe I tell it shortly here. In Finland we have really long and strong tradition of our child healthcare clinics, which are called neuvola. And basically every child goes to visit the clinic 18 times before the school age. It starts already when the mother is pregnant. The mom starts to go to the healthcare clinic, and then when the child is born, the development is followed there quite closely during the first year, and also later, not so often, but anyway. And this healthcare system in Finland for children, they make the checkups for physical ability and language and cognitive skills. So this kind of quite holistic health check. And the families are guided to get support or some guidance from the child health care clinic if they notice that there is something wrong in the child's development. So we don't need to do this kind of assessment in the kindergarten. We are working together with the healthcare clinics, and we also send some information to the healthcare clinic from the kindergarten, for example, about the child's social skills, because they can't evaluate them in the healthcare clinic because the child is there alone. So this is one strong part actually about
That
our
makes so
assessment.
much sense.
Yeah.
At our school, we have entrance test before the kids enter our school,
Yeah.
and it's not practiced by a principal. Our principal,
Okay.
principal will work as their parents and the children. She observes the children, and we have entrance test before the children enter our school.
Okay.
Sorry, I just have a little question in terms of health. For the children who were diagnosed with difficult learning needs or disabilities, would they be put, or would they be able to go to the school just like other children, or would they have a specific classes?
In Finland, for the last maybe past 10 years, we have been developing strongly the concept of inclusion in our education, and it means that no one is left behind and everyone is included in the community and in the school and in the kindergarten. So actually it's quite difficult to get a special place for those children who might have quite big problems actually. And again, the resources are not always so good, so we have many children with difficulties in the normal kindergarten groups, but maybe not enough support for them in the group.
So you think from your perspective, people like students with bigger problem might not get enough support that they should.
Not always.
Mm.
Yeah.
But then for the just a mild sort of learning difficulty, then it's better for them.
Yeah, it's of course maybe the most important thing in the child's life is to get friends
Yeah.
and feel that I'm included
Yeah.
in the child group.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But in different children, yes, we have our sport with teacher have a skills problem. Yeah.
Mm.
But they can they can go to the school with a normal children.
Yeah. The problem is also that if the children with special needs, if they don't get enough support in the group, also the other children are suffering because the teachers need to pay too much attention to the special needs children, and then the other students who would also need a lot of teachers' help don't get it.
Yeah.
So we need we would need to have more assistance, for example, in kindergarten.
Does it mean that there's not much of regulation in terms of how children with special needs should be treated in the school, rather than more like a general aspect of it?
Yes, there is regulation, and maybe the problem is that, as I said earlier, that we are lacking the staff, so it's difficult to hire people to work in kindergartens or schools. For example, we have a huge lack of child psychologists also, so even at this stage, so that's the problem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting to hear. Nice that we can have this kind of discussion here. Anything else?
Mọi người có muốn chia sẻ gì thêm không?
Okay.
I think we can go.
Okay, let's go to the topic more closely. Assessment in early childhood education and care, and also curriculum development. Maybe the basic question is that what actually we should assess? Where should we focus our assessment? And how are we doing the assessment? We already were talking about this topic. Do we pay attention to the deficits of the children, those things that they can't do? We tick the box, cannot do, cannot do, cannot do. Okay, this is something the child can do. Or do we focus on the strengths of the children? Now when we are talking about early childhood education and care, so very small children, what are the main things we want to pay attention to? And what can we teach to the children through assessment? Do we want to teach them that you are bad, you are not so good at the academic topics, for example? Or do we want to teach that yes, you can do things and learning is fun and you know how to do it, you can do it? So these are also things that we need to think about when we are talking about assessment. We already talked a bit about what the Vietnamese system is focusing on when the teachers are assessing children. And let's talk a bit more about it. In many countries the system goes like this, that they are focusing on the academic skills, maths and literacy and these kind of things. But actually the research shows that it would be more important to focus on developing the physical skills, for example. If the child has a good balance in the age of 5, it indicates that he or she will be better in mathematics at 5th grade. So small children are learning also academic things by doing things with their own body and being creative. But of course, if the educators don't know a lot, if their education is not so good, the easiest way to do the job of kindergarten teacher is to put the children to sit down, quiet, take pen, draw, make numbers. So that's the easiest way of teaching, but it's not the best way. It's really challenging to give more power to children, to ask them, what are you interested in? Let them play, and then try to connect the objectives of the curriculum to the games or to the creative activities. But it requires quite a lot from the teacher.
But the teacher in Vietnam, the teacher had pressure by parents. Yeah. Yeah. Because when the children go to primary school, they need to do math, yes, reading and speaking, and the parent want to the teacher in at the kindergarten has know first, because the teacher in the kindergarten teach them at the kindergarten before they come to they go to the primary.
Yeah.
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 And the parent worry about that if their children don't study in the kindergarten, they can't do well as an exercise in the primary.
Yeah, I understand it, yes. And maybe the competition is also high. I don't know if it's so high in Vietnam than in many other Asian countries, between different individuals, between the parents, between choosing the best schools. Yeah. So what are we actually talking about when we are talking about assessment? What does it mean? Albert Einstein has said that everything that can be counted doesn't necessarily count, and everything that counts cannot necessarily be counted. And I think this is very clever phrase. I'm not sure if it's Einstein's, but anyway. So what is important in life? What is important in education? What is important in childhood, in the family life? And how to measure, how to assess those things that are usually quite invisible. How can we assess the atmosphere, for example? Happiness, social relations. And I think this is the core of assessment in early childhood education and care, when we are starting to speak this concept. Kindergarten is not a factory, but many times the policymakers think that we need to produce some kind of packages from our kindergarten and check that the packages are not broken and count how many packages, how fast, how much money we get from producing the packages. So the package is the education or the child who goes to the school from our kindergarten. But kindergarten is not a factory. It's a library. It's a library of people, feelings, ideas, knowledge, cultures, skills, incidents, many different things that cannot be actually seen. So how to assess these things when we are talking about the quality of the early childhood education and care? What is a good kindergarten? someone thinks that a good kindergarten is a place which produces as much packages as possible or gets the best price from its services. But when we are discussing this topic from the educational perspective, we actually start to think that how can we develop our curriculum quality and our practical quality so that all these books in our kindergarten start to flourish. I think that's quite an interesting idea. The assessment word comes from Latin, from a word assidere, and assidere actually means sitting next to someone. Often we think that assessment is something that we do from the upper perspective to down perspective. So I'm assessing you and making my notes, and I use power, and you are a bit worried, what am I
Because
right?
I'm over you, so I assess you, sort of thing.
Yeah. But actually, from the Finnish perspective, and based on this Latin word, assessment should be more like discussion, together with the children, between the educators, together with the parents, sitting together and trying to find the meaning of things, trying to find the challenges, trying to find the strengths, trying to find solutions for different situations. We are creating the quality of early childhood education and care together with children and the parents and all the educators. And the tone is quite different when we are talking together than if someone is evaluating like this. There are different traditions of assessment. Maybe you already know this. Maybe if you are very familiar with these, you can tell, and we can skip them. The old-fashioned, or the maybe I would say old-fashioned way of assessment is summative assessment. The student makes a test, and we give the results, and that's it. Then we have the formative assessment, which is more supportive. We already assess the learning process during the learning, not in the end of the learning process, like in the summative assessment. And the child or the student gets possibilities to improve, learn more, do things differently during the learning process. The student gets insight about his or her own learning. And then the most recent idea of assessment is developmental assessment. And this is something we are trying to do now in Finland in early childhood education and care. And it means that assessment is actually part of learning. So the students are also, the children are also assessing, and they are learning how to assess their activities, their skills, and how to improve. So, and the developmental assessment guides the educators to develop the activities all the time. So it's not like that we make only one questionnaire in half a year for the parents, for example, and then based on these results we decide to do something. But we are trying to evaluate and assess the activities, the quality of our kindergarten all the time, after each lesson, after each activity, after each day, during the activities. And I think that's one of the most interesting things also for the educators, to be able to do this assessment I think it's quite natural also. For example, here, if I notice that you start to sleep, then I assess that, okay, I'm not interesting enough. I need to do something in a different way. So this is what teachers always do. And this is developmental assessment. So if we think about these three assessment traditions by using these pictures, we could use these kind of examples that if we are using summative assessment, it's like the customer in the restaurant gets the plate and tastes the food and says, okay, this is good, or really salty. So that's the final. Nothing can be done anymore because that's it. The food is already done and in the table. Then when we talk about formative assessment, the chef tastes the soup already in the kitchen where he or she is making the soup. So the chef gets feedback about, okay, maybe a bit more this and then that, and then taste again, okay, it's better. And in developmental assessment, we make the soup together. So we have different ideas and we make different kind of assessments. We have different opinions. Maybe we try some different solutions. Maybe we take some risks. We laugh together and try new things together. So we are learning at the same time when we are doing things, and the learning is collaborative. And this is something we would like to bring to the kindergartens, the spirit of developmental assessment, so that the children together with the adults cook their learning together. Do you want to say something about these ideas?
Muốn chia sẻ gì về cái ý tưởng, cái góc nhìn về đánh giá như này không ạ?
Hay quá ạ.
It's very interesting. We never really see it that way.
Yeah.
Assessment is a part of learning. What is purpose of assessment? Purpose for assessment for assessments or assessment for supporting is very important.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think learning by experience is so important.
Yeah. And maybe today we will also talk a bit about the 21st century skills later. So this also links with the 21st century skills. Today's people, we need to learn to do these kind of things already from very young. And this is where we can start. If the students only get the feedback from the teacher, they never, or maybe it's difficult for them to start to think by themselves and understand that I can do things, I can change things, I can choose, I can make decisions. What else?
If we use the developmental assessment approach and to observe the children, but in the class, for example, we have 4 children with 1 teacher, something like this. So it means that we have 4 different development assessment, right? Because each child they have a different one. So it means that the teacher need to work with each them to get know what exactly they develop. So how can we take the time to get the full observation about each diamond to get know which one have different kind of development and which one we have.
Okay, yeah. That's not the meaning of developmental assessment. We are not collecting facts or information about each child, but we are bringing these 4 children together with the teacher, and then we are talking, we are watching photos from yesterday, and children understand some things. So it's part of the teaching process also, that they are learning how to assess what did they do yesterday, what are they interested in. So we are not using assessment as a tool for evaluating children. We are not allowed to evaluate children in Finnish kindergartens. We are evaluating the activities, the educators, and the assessment is our tool for social constructivistic learning. So we are constructing the projects, the learning projects, for example, together with children. So it's a very strong value in Finland is participation. Children need to be participated in their own life, and they need to be able to say their own ideas, and we actually need to plan our activities in the kindergarten based on children's ideas and also their needs. So that's our first rule, always focus on the children's ideas and needs first. Then you know what you need to teach or what you need to bring to their educational.
So on that note, with all the assessment, if children are the center of learning and assessing, and you mentioned that the assessment is not for the children development or how good they are, but more about whether the activities or the lesson plan are effective enough, then what would be the criteria for the teachers? And when they do the assessment, especially with the developmental assessment, would that be between teachers and teachers, assessing whether the activities are well planned enough? But it also means that children's participation, engagement, and performance would also be included in the criteria, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, a good question. Now we are talking about the curriculum. The curriculum is the quality book for the personnel. And the curriculum should be created, of course, in relation with which assessment style we choose in our country or in our kindergarten. And the Finnish early childhood education and care curriculum is created in a way that there are not direct rules, not many direct rules, but it describes what kind of environment we as teachers should create and what are the areas we should discuss or should do with children. We don't have the end goals in Finnish early childhood education and care, so we don't need to check if the children learn something in the age of 5 or 3 or 6. We are not checking this, but we have wider goals which are called transversal competencies, and I could have spoken about those today. It's a big topic, but we have now a bit different topic today. But transversal competencies are competence areas like thinking and learning is one of the competencies. And everyone understands that thinking and learning is so wide topic that we never reach the final goal, because even in our ages we always learn something new about how to develop our thinking, what new to learn. So they are actually lifelong goals for every one of us. And we start to touch these topics already in the kindergarten. But we don't measure because they are measurable. We can't measure what is the level of her creativity because creativity is something that is not easy to tick a box and say how creative is she, like was said in this slide. And I know that this sounds really kind of wide and not so clear.
I think I understand what you was saying. I think it's the assessment focus more on how the development of the child, as long as they keep going, and if they're not, then what would be the reason why? And educators have to work around to see the effectiveness of the lesson plan, whereas not thinking about at this age the child has to reach a certain level, and if not, then they have to make the child to go up to that level. Does that make?
Maybe we don't have this system. No.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. That it's not in the assessment.
No.
Maybe because you have the belief, the trust there. That, you know, if you see something is not getting there, you keep doing it until, and you believe that it's gonna happen at some point. Maybe that's why.
Ở đây thì theo tôi thì tôi hiểu là các bạn ý không có phải là tập trung vào đánh giá bằng định lượng, mà ở đây là các bạn đánh giá bằng định tính, tức là có đánh giá nhưng không phải như Việt Nam mình là đưa ra cái số điểm, mà đây là đánh giá định tính. Thế và mình rất là tận có một cái khía cạnh có một cái khía cạnh ở đây là rất là thích, và chị thấy là các cô ở bên nước ngoài, các cô ấy có một cái cách mô hình hóa nó rất là dễ hiểu. Đấy là ngồi bên cạnh nhau, đánh giá cái từ Latin là ngồi bên cạnh nhau ấy. Thì như ở Việt Nam mình thì đã có rất là nhiều trường khi mà đánh giá trẻ ấy, thì sẽ là thảo luận và gần như mang tính chất chia sẻ. Hiện nay rất là nhiều trường là họp phụ huynh một ấy. Chúng tôi có làm các cái quyển portfolio của học sinh vào cuối năm. Thế và phụ huynh sẽ tự đăng ký khung giờ đến để gặp gỡ, trao đổi với giáo viên, và nó hoàn toàn là đúng là theo cái phương án đánh giá của họ, đấy là ngồi cạnh nhau, tức là chia sẻ thảo luận về những cái gì trẻ con đã được trải nghiệm qua, những cái gì trẻ con học được, rồi là những cái gì phát triển thêm, và nó không mang tính định lượng, nó chỉ mang tính chất là chia sẻ thôi, giống như kiểu đồng cảm, sự thông cảm ấy. Con nhà bạn có cái này cái kia, con nhà bạn còn cái này cái kia, hứng thú hay không hứng thú. Không, nó đầy đủ hết em ạ. Tại vì trong cái portfolio đấy nó sẽ có các cái sản phẩm của các cái project mà các bạn đã được thực hiện trong năm học của mình ấy. Không, cái cách mà họ nói, các cô có nói đến cái việc mà chúng tôi đưa ra cái dự án, và trong các cái dự án đấy thì về cơ bản họ khá tương đồng với mình. Đúng rồi, nó mang tính chất ghi chép lại, chủ yếu là ghi chép lại như kiểu documentation đấy, chứ không phải là mục đích là để đánh giá, chủ yếu là chia sẻ.
Interesting that you brought the portfolios to the discussion. I made my doctoral dissertation about pedagogical documentation, and portfolios are part of this practice of pedagogical documentation, and we also used them a lot in my kindergarten.
Một trong những cách mà họ process. Thực ra nó cái điều đầu tiên mà chị nói lúc đấy nó come back với cái slide đầu tiên với anh Say, tức là những cái điều mà họ cho rằng quan trọng thì không quantify được. Thế nên họ không emphasize vào cái quantitative. Bởi vì đối với họ những cái mà không quantify được, tức là không định lượng được, nó mới là những yếu tố quan trọng hơn.
Đúng rồi.
Đó, trong khi mình thì lại em không biết cái philosophy của mình là như nào mà mình
hạnh phúc thì không thể đo đếm được ấy.
Mà cái đấy mới là cái quan trọng.
Và con người sống chủ yếu với mục đích là có học tập hay làm bất kỳ cái gì đó cũng chỉ là hạnh phúc thôi. Vì ngay từ yếu tố đầu tiên cô đã nhắc đến rất nhiều về cái vấn đề happiness, rồi là family, rồi các thứ này kia rồi. Cho nên là mục đích của mọi người ở đây không phải là để cho đứa trẻ học được cái gì.
Nhưng mà chị thấy nó có vẻ hơn
Không phải đâu, nó là như vậy đấy. Nó phù hợp với văn hóa Phần Lan. Thế và họ là đất nước đang phát triển, họ làm còn mình là đang phát triển. Thì một cái thời gian sau này cái mục tiêu giáo dục của Việt Nam mình nó cũng sẽ
Of course, when you have a big population, it's easier that way.
Việt Nam thấy là mục tiêu của giáo dục Việt Nam là
But these
phát
are
triển cho trẻ các năng lực và kỹ năng nền tảng.
Nhưng mà
Trong
yeah,
đó
cái từ chị nói là từ phát triển, nghĩa là cái trước và đi sau phải tốt hơn cái trước, nghĩa là cái sự đánh giá ở đây là có thì level này phải có đi lên.
Cái
miêu
cái
tả
quan điểm về đánh giá, cái trọng tâm là khác nhau thôi, cái trọng tâm nó khác nhau.
Em hiểu.
Họ vẫn đánh giá nhưng họ đánh giá bằng cách khác,
Đúng,
hiểu không?
miêu tả nhưng mà phải có cái gì hơn cái gì chứ đúng không? Làm sao skill các bạn 3 tuổi, các bạn 5 tuổi như thế mà nó ok,
They
nó
can
có
do
chứ.
this one.
Nó có,
Yeah.
nó có nhưng mà nó không phải nó tập trung vào.
Không phải là đưa con
And as you know the Australian system, maybe you also know the New Zealand learning stories system, which is also the Pedagogical Documentation Act. Yeah. Okay. Let's continue about assessment. I have pairs here, the traditional way of assessing and then the modern way. Maybe the traditional way sounds very familiar to you from your own school years. Traditionally, assessment is using power. Someone is using power over someone else, usually the teacher. Top down. But when we think about assessment in the modern way, it actually should be giving supporting learning. Of course, it doesn't mean that we only say good things, but we are focusing on the good things, and then we, together with the student, discuss what would be the next thing you would need to learn. Or do you notice that you are fighting a lot with your friends? I know it's not nice for you either. What can we do to make the situation better? Yeah, so this kind of, evaluative discussions. Traditionally, assessment is classifying good and bad students. And often when we get some kind of label at the school, we also start to think about that's true, and okay, I'm a bad learner. When it should be directive, steering the student to the different routes.
I think the solution orientation is very, very important. The mindset.
We are used to give feedback, but the research say that maybe we should start to think more about feed forward. So how can I give you feedback which helps you to go forward?
Can you please elaborate that a little bit more, and also the directive?
The directive and classifying.
Sorry, the directive and the feed forward. What would be the example?
So the directive way of assessment is that we are not classifying. We are not saying that this is correct and this is wrong.
Right.
You are bad student, you are a good student. But we are trying to find different kind of paths. It's not so simple thing. There are many shades of gray in assessment. You did this very nicely. You concentrated well. You were smiling all the time. However, maybe you should try to do this a bit better, or maybe you should do something to learn this better. So give some directions instead of bad.
So it's more like a feedback.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and feedback shows that we are looking what happened, but actually we can't do anything about those things that already have happened. So we should look forward. How can we continue? What you should do next?
Suggestions?
The teachers can show the light to the students. Go this direction. This guides you.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Một bên là kết luận luôn.
So also traditionally the teachers have been focusing on problems, as we all know. This is not good, the student is behaving badly, or she's not developing well. But actually, from the students' perspectives, it's much more beneficial if we can focus on the strengths. Everyone knows that I'm bad at these and these things. And we quite easily start to think that I'm not important, no one loves me, everyone is shouting at me, everyone else is better. This is quite typical for children and also adults. So it would be really important in early childhood to try to help the children to appreciate themselves and understand their own strengths. I'm a very good friend, I have good social skills. I know what to do if there is some problem with the friends. I'm good in negotiating the situations, or I'm good at inventing new games with my friends, or I'm really good at singing or dancing. So we all need something that we feel that I know it, I'm good, I really enjoy it. I have this strong area, because if everyone can find even only one strong area, it can help the person to really learn a lot of other things, and also to have a mental ability to carry on also the more difficult tasks. So strength oriented is very important. But again, it doesn't mean that we focus only on the strengths. We have quite honest discussions. These are good things. I'm good at these. And I know that I should develop my mathematical skills. And actually I know how to do it. This I can do that then. So yeah. Traditionally the assessment used to be mutilating, and now we think that it should be empowering. We should give power to children, feel their strengths. Okay, maybe that's a bit same thing. Traditionally assessment used to promote similarity. All the students needed to do the same tasks in a similar way and learn those things at the same age. But actually we know that we are all so different, and even the children in the same age, they are of course very different from their personal reasons, but also a child who is born in January is in completely different situation than another child who is born in the same year in December. Also the difference between the genders makes big differences, even in the same age. So it's not fair for the students that we make them to do the similar things at the same time, because they are not similar. So nowadays we think that the assessment should promote diversity. We can learn that we are all different, we have our different strong areas, we all need help in some areas, and children learn to work together. They know that, okay, you are not so interested or good in this, but I can help you. And then the other student can help the other later in another topic. Earlier, education was really competition oriented, who gets the best results. Also the parents used to be really interested in the numbers, grades, what did you get? You need to get the best ones. Today we are thinking that assessments should be task oriented, so that the students, for example a group of students, 3 students, have some some task to complete together, and that task is the process that we are assessing. Or also in our school, we focus, even here in university, on different projects where many students work together, and their aim is to solve some problem, real life problem, for example. And then this process is evaluated. Not the children or students are not put to compete against each other, but to work together.
But this is a lot to do with culture as well.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that we can do this in Finland yet.
But we're trying to.
Yeah, this is something that we are trying to go ahead. Yeah. And there are many educators in Finland in kindergartens who are not so interested in these things and who don't understand these things. But little by little, education changes really slowly. So maybe after 10 years we have some better results. Again, poor Albert Einstein is saying this, that have you seen this picture earlier? I think it's great. This is our education system. We have all the different students on the same line, and the teacher says that for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb the tree. Yeah. Yeah. And now we can see that there are some students who are really good at this. They can do it immediately. They get the best grades. But then there is some goldfish, for example, who can never do this. So the phrase goes like this: everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid.
I think these days in Vietnam, people usually refer to this sort of mindset with the Gardner's areas of intelligence. But I actually prefer this one because I don't think it should be boxed into just A. Because I think people can just be good at things that are outside those. But in the same line.
I think it's the most important. The teacher really understand the children, and they should use all time to observe, to have observation for their children.
Yeah, right. And now we come to the curriculum development also. What do we want to write to our curriculum? Which choices do we make based on what kind of maybe the values are the most important thing. What kind of values do we have in our society or in our school, and how can we distill those values to the activities of our kindergarten? So what we decide to assess, that's what we think that is important thing. If we decide to assess the some academic skills of the 3 years old children or 4 or 5, then we steer also the education in our school to that direction. All the teachers start to push mathematical things to children because they know that the assessment is coming. But if we are choosing, for example, social skills or happiness, then the educators they make different kind of choices in their daily life. You get what you order. The goal of assessment is to maintain and improve quality. I think that's good to keep in mind. To maintain and improve quality. But what is quality? And now we come to the question you had earlier about what we should assess, or how can we find the important areas. what is quality? And quality from whose perspective? For example, which shoes would you choose? What do you think? What are the best quality shoes?
I think the most important it is suitable.
Suitability.
Suitability.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Depending on
But
function.
suitability for what? Depending on function.
Function.
Mm.
Yeah. What do you need?
Yes, if I have a fancy party, I might choose these. Maybe not because I'm so old. Maybe I would take these. But if I go to the forest to pick mushrooms, then I would take these. So it's always linked with the objectives or with what we want. So assessment requires an understanding of what is considered desirable or good as a way of operating of behavior or outcome. Okay, I think this is quite clear now. There are different views of quality. Subjective, I like coffee, you like tea, I like sugar, I don't like sugar. So it's always subjective. Then it's value-based. Do we want to focus on ecological values, for example? Do we want to protect our forests? Or do we want to get money from the forest and cut the trees and sell the trees? These are different values that steer our work, for example, ecological values. Values are also changing between times and cultures. So now when we are discussing from two quite different cultures, we can see that we have some similarities, but we can also notice that we have differences. Of course, in our societies, but also what we really think, because we have been raised differently. Our countries are quite different. For example, because we have so different amount of people living in our country. So values change. And between times also, yes, 20 years ago we thought differently. Now we have learned, studied to understand more. We have noticed that we have to react more to the environmental things and so on. But all in all, values are actually constructed in a joint conversations. If the kindergarten manager tells the staff that, okay, starting from tomorrow, we have this value. It doesn't happen like this. They might say that, okay, okay, we take that value after this day. But if they don't feel that it's important, meaningful, good, they don't buy it, they don't start to implement the value in practice. So that's why we should talk a lot with our staff members to make them to process these things and understand these things. For example, child-centered education, what it really means. It really means quite many things that many educators don't actually implement in practice. They might implement child-oriented education some pieces during the working day, but that's not a value that steers everything they do and how they talk with the students and how they toilet them and these kind of things. So to conclude this assessment part, these are the main principles of assessment. In Finland we have very strong office, National Education Evaluation Office, and it started to process the evaluation and assessment in early childhood education and care nationwide in Finland only maybe 8 years ago. And they have done a lot of research in Finland, and for example, these principles are made by them. Assessment needs to be systematic and well planned. We can't assess just sometime, yeah, okay, now I remember to assess today. That's not assessment if it's not systematic and well planned. And it should be written and decided by the managers together with the staff to discuss and decide what are we assessing and how. So it should be consistent. It should also be participatory, so that the persons who are working, they can participate in the assessment process. Continuous part of everyday life and collaboration, and it should happen in interaction with others, so also with parents. To be able to run a good assessment, the kindergarten needs to make an assessment plan. They need to decide what are we assessing generally, kind of all the time, and do we have some top 2 or top 3 assessment areas this year that we are focusing on, and how are we assessing those areas? For example, in many Finnish kindergartens, they have decided that this year our assessment focus is on play, and then they have brought a lot of literature to the educators, also some training sessions about play, so the staff learns to understand it better, they start to implement it better, and they are evaluating, they are assessing how the process goes, and they are comparing what was the situation in the autumn, what things did we change, how did it work, where are we now, what are we going to do next. So this is the developmental assessment. They are developing their activities.
Sorry, just one
Yeah.
question. Would these principles of assessment apply for teachers training as well? Would it be possible?
Yeah, yes, very well, yeah. So the people often think that assessment assessment means that someone from outside is watching you, watching us, and assessing us. But now in this thing, what I'm talking about now, the perspective is in the group of the workers or children. They are doing the assessment by themselves, and they are developing the activities. So the meaning of the assessment is not to try to catch someone from doing things in a wrong way, but the meaning is to try to find out what are the things that we could maybe do a bit better, or we should develop. So it's a learning process. Okay, now a bit more closely to the curriculum development process. So,
Just
yeah,
maybe just
yeah.
if anyone wants.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Mọi người có muốn hỏi thêm gì và chia sẻ thêm gì về phần, tại vì thực ra là chị có hỏi về cái công cụ ấy, thì cái
Chị
cách
hiểu
của
rồi.
của người Phần Lan thì
Tức là
nói
cô
gì?
vừa nói luôn rồi. Cô vừa nói luôn rồi. Tức là ở đây theo mình hiểu là họ cũng có những cái sự tương đồng với mình, nhưng mà cái cách họ làm và cái quan điểm của họ, cái trọng tâm nó khác nhau. Việt Nam mình trọng tâm vào cái khác, Phần Lan họ phát triển hơn mình và
Tức
họ
là nó
trọng
liên
tâm
quan
vào
đến
cái
văn
khác.
hóa nữa đấy.
Văn hóa và đời sống của họ họ phát triển hơn mình thì họ khác nhau rồi.
Thực ra là có
Tư duy nó khác nhau.
có một cái cô để là cái circumstances là chọn cái đôi giày nào, tại sao mình lại nghĩ nó là quality nhưng mà nó không, ví dụ
Nó
vì
là
người ta
personal
Bắt trẻ con
quality.
học đứa nào phải giỏi toán ấy, kiểu như tại sao ví dụ chúng nó học
nhưng mà vấn đề là cái phương pháp mà họ đánh giá trẻ ở đây có thể apply vì mình nhìn trong lớp đó, hai giáo viên mà có từng đấy bạn ạ, về
Nó khác
Việt
nhau
Nam
mà.
mình nó rất là khác.
Nên cái quan trọng nhất
Đúng
là
rồi.
cái quan sát và cái hiểu trẻ.
Và suitability
Cái
always,
hai cái
circumstances
quan trọng nhất.
always.
Còn mọi cái mà họ đưa ra thực ra không phải Việt Nam mình không có, mà rõ ràng các yếu tố về culture, về lịch sử là khác nhau nên mình chưa làm được thôi.
We agreed with what you are explaining to us in many aspects, and I think we think that's a very in like a perfect, almost lab conditions because of obviously the ratio between teachers and students, and the society is very educated here, whereas in our country we have the same core value in terms of curriculum and assessment and children development. At the same time, there are certain things that we are not well developed, and the lack of training, the lack of researchers, the lack of open-minded, more different new approach is something that putting us behind. But we actually believe that if we learn more and be open-minded about this, we definitely can improve, especially about doing the assessment, treating children on the size and not
và được lên
from
flight tốt.
under us. If that makes
cái gì
any
cái phần nào
Hệ thống đầu tiên ấy,
hệ thống
I think that you are now in a hard place because
có
we
phải là
started
hệ thống
from
theo cái việc là
quite
theo độ tuổi
top
của nó không?
level
Tức
with
là
you,
nó phải có
but
sự
these are actually things that we can teach
phát triển đồng tâm
to the normal teachers
tức là
when we
các
start
độ tuổi
from a lower level, more practical. Yeah.
liên kết với
So it's
nhau.
all about education.
And also the quality of teachers here are very, very
Yeah,
good as well.
yeah.
And the living condition for the teachers,
Yeah.
so that they can rest assured and just work. Whereas for us, we need to take care of the teachers a lot and have like really big understanding for them and the parents as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, this
Yeah.
is like a really, really good
Yeah.
way of assessing
Yeah.
children.
I